The year was 1982. The first artificial heart was implanted into a human for the first time. Princess Grace of Monaco died from injuries suffered in a car accident, and Waiting for a Girl Like You by Foreigner was topping the charts. But music and royalty weren't the only things making headlines. In March of 1982, Microsoft UK is incorporated, becoming the first official international subsidiary for Microsoft. And in June, there's a changing of the guard. Well, sort of. James C. Town is appointed President and Chief Operating Officer of Microsoft. In July, he took over all responsibilities from Bill Gates, who will assume the title of Executive Vice President, responsible for all development activities. Bill Gates also remained Chairman of the Board. Later that month, Microsoft got a new look, as they announced a new corporate logo, new packaging, and a comprehensive set of retail dealer support materials. Later that summer, Microsoft became a registered trademark in the U.S., and acquired a fax machine for in-house use. It was a Panafax 1200. Microsoft's local area network, MyLAN, is now fully functional, linking all of Microsoft's in-house development computers, many of which are running Xenix. Now, this system will simplify email delivery on-site. And to help simplify it even further, Bill Gates became Bill G. On August 1st, 1982, Microsoft Multiplan version 1 for MS-DOS ships.
Well, our BASIC was fairly deep. The BASIC they first put in this machine was really, really limited. It was it wasn't going to be expandable, and they wanted to put on graphics. They wanted to put on a disk. They wanted to have sound, and we knew how to do those things. We went in and showed them we could help them design new machines, really work in partnership with them, and do it even less expensively than they could, trying to manage software development themselves. In the case of Apple, Wozniak had done the integer BASIC, and he was playing around thinking about doing a floating point BASIC. I don't know why he never got around to it, but they knew they needed one, and so they had Jobs and Randy Wigington came out, talked to us, and I put the cassette extensions in, integrated into their ROM, and that became what was called AppleSoft BASIC. In terms of the Commodore PET, they started with us from the very beginning because we helped Chuck Peddle, who was at Commodore at that time, really think about the design of the machine, adding lots of fun characters to the character set, things like smiley faces and suit symbols. That was the first machine we did that had this wild extended character set, and all these machines started out using cassette-based storage, where we could store about 1,200 baud worth of data on these cassette tapes. So this was really a generation of machines. These were the popular 8-bit machines. There was another type of 8-bit machine that was a little higher end, that were the CPM-80 machines, all of which ran this operating system from Digital Research. And we wrote our languages to run on top of that. That was Gary Kildall's company. And that really defines the 8-bit era of computing. I mean, there were some refinements, like we can see here that Radio Shack built a portable version of their computer. And this is the Osborne computer. That's actually a CPM-based computer. And it was, this is an attempt at portability in this 8-bit era. We're actually running on the this machine here, one of our first applications. We were broadening out by now into a lot more than just BASIC. We had a portfolio of languages, but we also had a spreadsheet, and we were about to come out with a word processor. So this is the screen appearance of the spreadsheet called Multiplan. It's kind of an obscure footnote in the history because VisiCalc, that came before it, the real creator of that category, did incredibly well in the Apple II. And we designed our spreadsheet to work on 8-bit machines and the next generation. But 1, 2, 3, which was only designed for the 16-bit machines, got ahead in terms of features. And so Multiplan, although contributed a lot of good ideas, actually was essentially passed by with the work that Lotus did on 1, 2, 3.
In October of 1982, Microsoft took a personal hit, as Paul Allen was diagnosed with Hodgkin's disease, which was localized and in a very treatable form. he was put on a limited work schedule while undergoing treatments, and although his treatment was successful, he would resign from Microsoft in 1983. While Microsoft was busy releasing Typing Tutor 2 for Apple II, Softcar Premium, and Flight Simulator for MS-DOS, major news was happening around the world. There was the Tylenol tampering scare, where 7 people died from taking cyanide-laced Tylenol capsules. Johnson & Johnson quickly recalled over 30 million bottles. 1982 also gave us the beginnings of Diet Coke and Equal artificial sweetener. In less than 4 months after IBM introduced the PC, Time magazine named the computer as the Man of the Year. It was the year 1982, and year-end sales totaled over $24 million. The 1982 calendar year employee headcount was 220 people. But things for Microsoft were about to take a dramatic turn, as one of its co-founders makes a life-altering decision. The year was 1983. Sally Ride, age 32, was the first U.S. woman astronaut in space. The final episode of MASH aired with over 120 million viewers, and Kodak produced 8 million disc cameras during the first year of production. But the year 1983 proved to be one of dramatic changes for Microsoft. On February 18th, Paul Allen resigned as Microsoft's executive vice president, but remained on the board of directors. A few weeks later, on March 9th, 1983, Microsoft introduced MS-DOS 2.0. Now, as they rolled into the month of May, Microsoft introduced the Microsoft Mouse. It was a low-cost handheld pointing device for use with the IBM PC, as well as any other MS-DOS-based personal computer.
I mean, for the first time, we hired a salesperson, and we hired a finance person, and so we had some new categories of skill that were things that I had essentially done, but that were more demanding now. We hired in Vern Rayburn to run this consumer products effort, to think about packaging and pricing and promotion and how to get those things out there. And he hired quite a few people in to help him work on that area. So the development group, which has always been sort of the core of Microsoft, there it was the same kind of person coming on board, but the company had more aspects. In fact, we started our activities in Japan and in Europe, and so we were getting people in many different places, even though development we kept all here in Seattle. Our hiring was always focused on people right out of school. We had a few key hires like Charles Simoni that came in with experience, but most of our developers, we decided we wanted them to come with clear minds, not polluted by some other approach, and learn the way that we liked to develop software and put the kind of energy into it that we thought was key.
On November 29th, 1983, Microsoft shipped its full-featured word processing program, Word for MS-DOS 1, and provided a free demonstration copy to subscribers of the PC World Software Review. A few months later, Microsoft Press, a trade book publishing division specializing in computer books, was formed. Microsoft Press expected to publish 30 to 35 books in its first year. And the products just kept coming. And in November 1983, Microsoft unveiled Windows, an extension of the MS-DOS operating system that provided a graphical operating environment. Now, Windows featured a window management capability that allowed a user to view unrelated application programs simultaneously. It also provided the capability to transfer data from one application program to another. Windows wouldn't actually ship until 2 years later. As the year came to a close, the first international subsidiaries to connect to Microsoft email were in Europe, including the UK, France, and Germany. In 1983, the world population was 4.6 billion. The median household income was roughly $20,000, and the cost of a first-class stamp, 20 cents. But could the company continue its success with the absence of co-founder Paul Allen? Well, only time would tell. The year was 1984. Sitcoms Kate and Ally and The Cosby Show premiered to both critical and popular acclaim. In medicine, Baby Faye received a transplanted baboon heart, and the Supreme Court okays home TV recording in its ruling on the Sony case. And at Microsoft, 1984 began with a bang, when on January 24th, 1984, Microsoft and Apple Computer announced the new Apple Macintosh computer and Microsoft's custom-designed productivity software for it. Macintosh's interface, combined with Microsoft's software, Multiplan, Chart, Word, File, and Basic, provides a powerful and functional environment for all users. On March 4, 1984, Microsoft joined forces with Spectra Video and 4 Japanese firms to establish a hardware-software compatibility standard based on the popular Z80 8-bit microcomputer. The standard, called MSX, made available a new set of standard specifications so diverse software programs would be compatible with low-cost home computers from different manufacturers. MSX was developed primarily for the Japanese market as the first unified format in Japan for software or hardware. It was never adapted for sale in the U.S.
There were other people. Kazuhiko Nishi, who was a very close friend of mine from Japan, really taught me about the Japanese market, got us doing the very first Japanese personal computer, the NEC PC-8000, and many of those other projects. He's a visionary, very energetic, almost overly optimistic about where things can go, and had started a lot of the early computer magazines in Japan and worked with us for a long time. Because it was a fast-moving business and all that, we worked very long hours, and we'd go out to movies together. Everybody was knew each other awfully well, and up until 1981, Paul and I had owned the whole company, except we'd shared a little bit of it with Steve. And there wasn't much pressure to do anything differently than that. But then around 81, we decided to share some of the ownership in the form of options, and actually brought some of the really strong contributors into that program.
A few weeks later, Microsoft Press introduced its first 2 titles, Carrie Lu's The Apple Macintosh Book and Peter Norton's Exploring the IBM PC Junior Home Computer. On March 29, 1984, Microsoft expanded when they created a new hardware and peripherals division dedicated to developing and marketing hardware products that complement Microsoft's software product line. On August 14th, IBM chose Xenix and MS-DOS for its new generation personal computer, the IBM PC-AT. Come September, Microsoft was on the move. They scheduled a meeting with Redmond City officials to discuss relocating the company to the Evergreen Place development in 1985. Now, once again, Microsoft released a plethora of products, including Project 1.0, Multiplan for Mac 1.0, Serial Mouse 2.5, Softcard 2, and C Compiler 2.0. The 1984 fiscal year-end sales totaled $97 million, and the 1984 fiscal year employee headcount was now 860 people. As the year ends, Microsoft gears up for 1985, where Windows will be delivered. The year was 1985. Symbolics.com was the first domain name registered, the wreck of the Titanic was discovered after 73 years, and the CD-ROM format was created by Philips in collaboration with Sony. And at Microsoft, 1985 marks the company's 10-year anniversary. It also marks the release of Microsoft Mac Enhancer Expansion System, a new hardware product designed to open up the Apple Macintosh computer to a wide range of IBM-compatible peripherals. On February 1st, 1985, Ida Cole is named the new Vice President of Applications, responsible for planning, development, and marketing for the application software product line. She was previously with Apple Computer. On May 3rd, Rich McIntosh was called to the Canadian Department of Agriculture to retrieve his Microsoft mouse after it was quarantined for 4 weeks. On August 9th, 1985, Microsoft announced that the company broke ground on a new Microsoft World Headquarters in Redmond, Washington, that's scheduled for completion by mid-1986. In other world news, the Live Aid concerts in Philadelphia and London raised almost $250 million for African famine relief. And Coca-Cola introduced New Coke, which was one of the biggest marketing disasters of the 20th century. On August 22, 1985, Microsoft signed an agreement with IBM for joint development of operating systems and other systems software products. In early September, Microsoft selected the Republic of Ireland as the site of its first production facility outside the US for software products to be sold in the European market. And on September 30th, Microsoft announced the shipment of Excel for the Macintosh to retail stores. Excel was a powerful, full-featured microcomputer spreadsheet that combined business graphics with an on-sheet database. As the year came to a close on November 20th, 1985, Microsoft shipped the retail version of Windows, an operating system that extends the features of the MS-DOS. The long wait between announcement and shipment prompts Microsoft to stage the launch as a roast event hosted by John Borak of PC Magazine.
Actually, there's been a lot of change for me since Windows was introduced. Actually, the time we started Windows development, I was the financial guy. I was the guy who reviewed the investment decision. I said, okay, 6 man-years, no problem. 1 disk, no problem. We're now 80 man-years later, and we're selling a $99 product with 5 disks. They moved me into a new job. I hit some tough times, though. We got into the delay. The letter went out. I was despondent. Things were bad. I had no respect from anybody. I was even trying to sell my house. I ran a little listing in the Microsoft newsletter for my house. The editor of our internal company newsletter chose to editorialize. Ballmer's house has Windows. Ballmer doesn't. It was bad. Things got worse and worse and worse. By April of this year, it was bad. Even Bill, who I've known for a long time, and he normally is willing to give me just a little bit of slack, Bill called me into his office. It was a fury of frustration. He starts screaming at me. This was like Bill's 99th Windows bug he had discovered. And I tried to explain to him, hey, Bill, it's 1 in 100 million. Most people don't hit the A, D, G, K, and S keys simultaneously at 2 in the afternoon. They'll never see the names of the development group pop up on that screen, not once. Bill was not to be placated, though. He said to me, Ballmer, ship this thing before the snow falls, or you'll end your career here doing Windows. I walked back to my office. I called our PR group. I said, look, let's let the cat out of the bag. This thing is going to ship before the snow falls. They did it. Last Sunday, ladies and gentlemen, for the first time in 10 years, it snowed in Seattle. At Microsoft, we're damn proud to have done Windows. Thanks for coming.
And I would like to introduce, and I feel privileged to do so, Mr. Bill Gates.
To dream the impossible dream.
I'd really like to thank everybody who came here tonight. First, I'd like to thank Steve, because Steve's really been a part of the whole process. We used to have a lot of meetings where we'd sit and say, look, we just got to cut features. We just got to cut features. We got to get this thing out. What can we do? And so Steve's kind of a non-technical guy. So he came up with this idea that we could rename the thing Microsoft Window. And we would have shipped that a long time ago. Actually, I'm the guy who gets to be real serious and talk about the fact that this really is a great product. We put our hearts and souls into it. We didn't hesitate at any time to put more people onto it and really make it what we want it to be. And I'm going to show you real quickly a couple highlights from the product. This is the user-friendly shell that you first interact with.
A little different color?
Yeah, and you can run old applications. Here we're running 1, 2, 3, doing everything we normally do. We can bring up a chart, if you can see it, and we just put that chart in the clipboard and went back to Windows. And then we pulled up a paint program, and we used the paste command to pull in this chart. So there it is, the whole chart. You can scroll around, see the whole thing. And you can use the paint program to touch it up. So we're going to use that little bucket, pour some paint in those slices, make this thing look really good. And once we're done with the paint program, we can stick that window on the right and go over and use the shell to start up the write program. So the write program comes up, we can type a letter, and this write program is actually included in with the retail package. Now here we're going to use copy and paste to move that graph over into the document. So there it is in the rich text document. The next thing we want to show is the graphics and running multiple things at the same time. There it is with some boxes. Very, very high utility value there. A nice three-dimensional cube, and look, you can do these all at the same time. Palette, full screen cube, and here we're using tiling. We're moving things around. You never lose anything. It automatically resizes. We've got a clock up there. We can put the clock down in the icon area. It's multitasking, all right. Those programmers never forget. More and more. We got a calendar program that uses the graphical interface. We got a card file. We got a terminal program. Here we're running the terminal program. The card file on the side. It's all here, all running in 640K and totally flexible. No, this is real time.
80 megahertz.
Now, here we have 8 copies of 1, 2, 3, and Multiplan, and DBase, and multiple copies of all these things. And we can run them, move them around, look at the data. All the old applications run. And now, the retail package of Microsoft Windows. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. It's here.
1985 saw the release of a variety of products from Microsoft, including MS-DOS 2.0, Chart for Macintosh, Microsoft Access 1.0, Business Communication App, not the database, COBOL 2.1, Mac Enhancer 2.0, Basic 2.1 Interpreter for the Mac, Word for Networks, Quick Basic Compiler for Logo and for Mac. In 1985, the game Tetris was written, the domain name system DNS was created, and Microsoft celebrated its 10th anniversary with sales figures of more than $140 million. But this was the last year the company called Microsoft would be remaining so very private. The year was 1986, and Martin Luther King Day was celebrated as a federal holiday for the very first time. The Legend of Zelda premiered on the Nintendo video game system, and Halley's Comet returned for another near-Earth appearance. For Microsoft, 1986 proved to be a slimming one, as a January survey of lunchroom consumption revealed that Diet Coke topped the employee popularity list. On January 30th, Microsoft and Santa Cruz Operation announced new agreements and joint marketing plans concerning Microsoft Networks for Xenix. In February, His Royal Highness Prince Charles of Great Britain visits the Microsoft showroom at the Infomart in Dallas. He compliments Jerry Rutenberg, Vice President of Retail, and Shelley Jones on the color and graphics of the Microsoft Windows demonstration given to him by Jan Josephs. And later that month, Microsoft moved to its new corporate campus, buildings 1 through 4 in Redmond, Washington. On March 13, 1986, Microsoft stock went public at $21 per share, rising to $28 per share by the end of the first trading day. The initial public offering raised $61 million. In other tech news, Compaq Computer Corp makes the Fortune 500 faster than any other company ever. Apple Computer introduced the Macintosh Plus and LaserWriter printer. And Teddy Ruxpin, a talking bear with a built-in microchip, brings computer technology to preschool. Back at Microsoft on April 22, 1986, direct shipment of software to the Republic of South Africa was stopped, and the relationship with the local distributor was terminated due to the South African government's policy of apartheid. Previously, support for anti-apartheid activities had been demonstrated by the donation of all profits earned from South Africa's software sales to the American Friends Service Committee. On May 9, 1986, Microsoft press releases Windows, the official guide to Microsoft's operating environment by Nancy Andrews. This is the first book available and is a complete introduction to the basic operations of the Microsoft Windows environment, the 7 Windows desktop applications, and using Windows Write and Windows Paint. On July 3rd, IBM announced the PC Convertible, which uses 3.5-inch discs. Consequently, all application software that runs on Microsoft MS-DOS programming languages, hardware, and Microsoft Windows products will be made available on 3.5-inch discs. July 21st, 1986, Bill Gates makes the cover of Fortune magazine for the first time and is featured in an 8-page article entitled "The Deal That Made Bill Gates, age 30, $350 million." On August 20th, Microsoft begins shipping Excel, Word, File, Multiplan, and Chart for the Macintosh on 800K double-sided discs. On September 5th, Steve Ballmer completes the first Trans-Lake build G-Swim after losing a challenge to the MS-DOS 5 team to complete their bug fixes by September 1st. September 17th, Microsoft announced the availability of extensions to MS-DOS that support the use of CD-ROM disk drives with personal computers. On October 2nd, Microsoft Works for the Macintosh ships. On October 10th, the Microsoft Systems Journal magazine makes its debut. It's targeted towards software developers. Now, this is the first issue devoted exclusively to Windows. On October 22nd, Aldus, Hewlett-Packard, and Microsoft form a desktop publishing alliance to market their products as a complete desktop publishing solution. By the end of the year, Microsoft shipped a stack of products. Microsoft ended the 1986 fiscal year with sales totaling more than $197 million and an employee headcount of 1,153 people. And the future looks bright for Microsoft as they acquire Aforethought, which will put them on the forefront of desktop presentations. The year was 1987. The world population reached 5 billion. Guns N' Roses' debut album Appetite for Destruction was #1 in the US, and Sun introduced the SPARC processor. And for Microsoft, expanding globally was a great way to start off the year, as it launched an official subsidiary in Spain. On April 2nd, Microsoft and IBM announced OS/2. This is the first product to be announced as a result of the joint development agreement between Microsoft and IBM in August 1985.
1987 is an exciting year for graphics interface. The increased popularity of the interface has meant that the sales of the Macintosh have been accelerating, as well as all the great software that's sold on Macintosh. It's also meant that over in the MS-DOS world, the new machines are being designed with better graphics built into them and also with higher speed. A very good example of this is IBM's new Personal System 2.
If 1987 has been a turning point, what can we expect over the next few years?
Well, the hardware that's going to be sold over the next couple of years is really a new generation of machines. And this generation is even more important than the original PC. This generation of machines will be characterized by the use of advanced microprocessors like the 286 or the 386. Also, a large number of these machines will be running the new OS/2 operating system, which allows for the use of lots of memory and for multitasking to run multiple applications at the same time. The graphics interface is an integral part of this new generation. Whether somebody's using Windows on MS-DOS or using the graphics interface that's built into OS/2, they'll get an identical appearance. Also, a great number of these new machines will be connected to networks, which will allow for group productivity, where you're exchanging information as well as preparing it on your own machine. This new generation will enable a whole new set of applications. In fact, there'll be hundreds and hundreds of great applications that take PCs much further than they've gone before and allow us to move towards this exciting vision of a machine on every desktop.
On July 30th, Microsoft acquired Forethought, the developer of PowerPoint, a leading desktop presentation application. And technology made many advances in 1987, as the first fax boards, which let people send and receive faxes on a PC, are shown at Comdex. Sun Microsystems debuts its first RISC, Reduced Instruction Set computing workstation, and IBM introduces the PS2. popularizing the 3.5-inch floppy and bringing 256 color displays to home PCs for the first time through the introduction of the VGA standard. As for the stock market, well, the Dow Jones Industrial Average closed above 2,000, then 2,500 for the first time, before plummeting back to the low 1700s barely 3 months later on Black Monday. It was the second largest one-day percentage decline in stock market history. On September 8th, Microsoft shipped its first CD-ROM application, Microsoft Bookshelf. It was a collection of 10 of the most popular and useful reference works on a single CD-ROM disk. Come October 6th, Microsoft announced Excel for Windows, offering unprecedented functionality, presentation capabilities, and customizability to spreadsheet users. It was 1987 and the year-end fiscal sales totaled more than $345 million, and the 1987 fiscal year employee headcount was 1,816 people. And looking forward, Microsoft has a lot more to prove.